Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first edition of Standalone Q&A, Questions and Answers. So this is the first time that I'm deciding just to make a video specifically for questions and answers. The reason is I'm right at a time right now where I'm about to catch a plane to an undisclosed location, and I'll be away for about a little bit of time, but we got some videos programmed for the channel, so that should be all good. So, what do I have to say? I don't want to just faff around too long. I want to actually get to the questions and answers. Some of these, as you might know, I've already answered in the past, but this is sort of whenever there's a question that I think will be like interesting or suitable, or just a new person that I'm noticing in the channel, or maybe an older person, not an older person, but someone who's part of the channel community, then I'll pick those up as well. And so yeah, we don't have that many this time around, but we might as well get to them. All right. So let's go to the first particular question that we have here, and this is European Man. Looks really great. Do you run a public server, or are you playing just local? Short answer to that is I'm playing local. Long answer to that is I don't run a public server. I run a private server, which operates on my machine for test purposes. It's not open to the public, so the only person who can actually connect to that server is me. And I use it for the development of the videos and of the patches and whatnot. There are other services, other servers out there that you might be able to join, public or otherwise. But I don't want to get into too many of those details. But yeah, that's the long answer to that question. So Arthur Pouzet says, looks great. Don't overwork yourself. All in due time. Smiley face. Thank you, Arthur Pouzet. I am taking it easy. I am trying not to overwork myself. In the end, I do sort of work in the same field. So for me, the work that I do between what I do in my job to what I do on YouTube to what I do for like other publications that I actually freelance for, it's all the same work. So I'm very like conscientious of the amount of work that I'm doing. And yeah, and I think so far we have like a good balance. Sometimes I'm a little bit late, but that just happens. All right, so now we have another comment from Enthused Norseman. Looks great. Thanks for the map view too. It's really great to get a sense of proportion and scale. Yeah, so one of you right now, your name escapes me, but in a past video had suggested that, had to, and all of you have asked, or a bunch of you have asked at this point, if I could give you like an overview of an area, or if I can give you like a bird's eye view, and I often forget that because in my mind, I'm the one who's modding, so I know how everything fits, but then when I think about what you all want and what you want to see, I forget that sometimes you might not know where these environments might be fitting exactly. But you know what? It's also good because I get to make a second video and go like, hey, look, there's a map. And you're all amazed by it, which is amazing, which is great, which I'm happy that I can do. Next question. This isn't a question, it's just a statement from a weird dude. Amazing as ever. Love it. A weird dude has started a Discord channel for the channel itself. So if anyone wants to go ahead and join, I'm going to try and make sure to put the link of that down below. All right. Next question is from Jesse Etzler. Hey, I had a question that maybe you can answer, or is there a way to use 1.12 client but use assets from any expansion with Nugget? Okay, so the problem is it possible? I suppose it is possible. The problem is that you have For modding tools, certain tools are made specifically for certain versions of WoW. The reason most people choose to stay with 3.35a, Wrath of the Lich King, is because it's the version of WoW that has the most amount of modding tools and resources. So most people, when they do their mods, when they convert models from other expansions, most people seem to put them in the in Wrath of the Lich King, in the Wrath of the Lich King version. So you could, but I'm not entirely familiar with what tools are available or even up to date for 1.12 client, and or how you would even go to converting, say, something from like Legion down all the way down to 1.12. I have no idea. I can tell you that it works pretty well. I've seen from Wrath. I've seen some down conversions to 1.12, and obviously from Burning Crusade, as far as I know. So it is possible, but you're also going to have a lot harder time modding the game at that version. Okay, so what else do we have here? We have a question or a comment from Sociopath Blog. Much better than the original. This is a reference to my first Gilneas mod. Okay, yes, it in my view it is much better. It clearly reflects what Gilneas is in Cataclysm without having to bring all the Cataclysm assets into the game. Um, the previous one was cool, but it was a different idea that I had in my head, and at the end we sort of ended up with the updated version, which I'm kind of really happy about. Next question by Lord Xavius. Lord Xavius. Looks like such a beautiful zone as always. I'm curious on the choice of not to use Legion models for some of the buildings. Adore what you've done with this. Thank you for making these updates. Okay, so when I started modding, and I started modding Warcraft 3, I would usually I'd see like people do all these models, and they were okay, and they were cool, and they brought in all these other assets, but they were like pretty big models. So sometimes just one model would take up 2 megs, which would be sometimes larger than the actual file size for the map. Which at the same time, back in the days in BattleNet, like people had to download your map if they didn't have it. And I'm assuming it still works. It's still going to work the same way. Um, but yeah, I thought that you'd have to be economic with resources. So I used to use anything that was already available in the game, textures that were already available in the game, models that were already available in the game, tweaking them in like different ways, getting creative with them, and then making your mod that way. And if you had to bring in like specialized resources, then that would be great. Having said that, the problem with something like, for me personally, with some of the Legion models is that I think they're a bit too high res, a bit too complicated, and really hefty in terms of how much file space they take up. I don't want to end up with a patch that is really big and heavy and cumbersome that many people can't take. I think it's really amazing when a modder can get away with changing really large chunks of mass and terrain and have it be something like under 100 megs. That I think is like pretty cool, and that's what I tend to aim for. So I never bring in personalized assets or specific assets unless I really, really think that I can't get around it. And for this zone, I always just thought I can get around this. These ruins are all over the place. There's a sort of like a shared common history to these like ruins between like all the elven races. So I thought, you know what, yeah, this it's fine. This is just another bit of like highborn slash later high elf ruins that are still in ruins, and it just sort of works. Would I consider doing it at another stage? Maybe, but I don't know. But yeah, that's sort of like the long answer as to why I decided to do things this way. We've got another question from Enthused Norseman. Don't you think putting walls will take away some of the just reclaimed feeling of the High Elf city? I haven't much more to say. It still looks good. Yeah, you're right. Like when I designed this area, I thought these are ancient ruins that were found by the High Elves while they were still searching for different locations and where to settle while on Lordaeron, and they later reclaimed it, and uh, then with the collapse of their sort of kingdom and all these different problems that they face, they lose control of it again. The trolls take over it, and then we get to the mod, which would be presently set in this recently reclaimed city. Um, I still want to play around with the walls a bit, but I want to make sure that if I do put them in, they're going to be ruined walls. They're not going to be pristine walls, and they're going to make sense to what the city is. The city isn't terribly huge, so they can't be massive at any sense. But I'm still thinking about it. I still haven't decided, but it makes me think. And thanks for the question, because I really do appreciate it. Next question is from Valier. Great job with all the details. Seeing every tree and waterfall in the distance makes a lot of difference. The atmosphere and complexity of the zone. It feels like I could just log in there and start to level my HE alt. Yeah, yeah, it's cool. Like that's what I wanted to get. I wanted to get this, familiar vibe, which what you would get if you get sort of like a blood elf, but I wanted there to be a specific, difference. I wanted to make perhaps a bit more emphasis on like marble and blue colors. So like you'll see a lot of that, like, obviously repeat in flowers and crystals and um, across the entire map, and sort of like the trees only ever being golden. Um, I even played with the idea of perhaps having some of these trees have like bluish leaves with like in their yellowness as well, which I haven't like completely ruled out, but I still need time to figure out and play with that a little bit. But I'm glad you enjoyed it, and maybe, I don't know, maybe sometime down the line Blizzard will add HEs as an additional allied race. But we'll see. All right, so Manwich says, hey, at least we'll finally be able to play High Elves when Blood Elves get blue eyes in 9.0. Ooh, woo. Ooh, woo. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen. Is that what's going to happen? Do any of you know any of the news right now regarding 9.0? I stopped paying attention for a bit when it started getting a little bit crazy. I saw the announcements for Shadowlands. But yeah, I haven't heard. But if that's, I'd be surprised if that were an actual option in 9.0. Next question, Inquisitor. I really like your mods and their themes, but I have one burning question for you. Have you thought about doing a mod for pre-cataclysm Mount Hyjal, the entire zone that could be the largest mod that you would get your hands on thus far? Yes, that's something that's really interesting. The question I think about Mount, and I'll probably address this on a standalone like video to see like what's going on with Mount Hyjal, and uh, possibly um, what to do with it. I haven't spent a huge amount of time. I know that's a really big area and that it's very empty. So that's a good question, but I think I should do a video and sort of like start panning around and questioning exactly what it is that we should be looking at. All right. Tacos and corn. This is from Reddit. I've been watching your videos for a while, and I was wondering, are you open to collabs? Is there a Discord or Facebook or email? Where can we get a hold of you? Okay, there is a Discord channel, which I'm going to remember to put in the description, as well as a Facebook link, and as well as the email. So if you want any of those three things, they're going to be down in the description below, and you can either write to me, join and follow the channel on Facebook, or go to Discord and join that chat and participate there. All right, David Vladoy is like, oh God, I want too bad, Gilneas, on Wrath of the Lich King. Do you plan to make a server, but also share the resources to create our own private server with your content? Um, David, in relationship to the Gilneas mod, yes, I will make it available at some point. Right now, there is a role-playing community that I've given it to that's called um, they're called Wake, and Wake is they're going to currently put it into implementation. So if you're curious and you want to get a sneak peek at what that is, search out the WoW Wake role-playing community, and hopefully you'll be able to join them. All right. Next question is from Jean Cool. How was this done? Did you modify the WMO in a 3D editor like Blender, or was this made out of M2s in Nougat? Right. So it's a bit of a combination of both, and I remember answering this question, but I'm going to try and flesh it out a bit more for you. Essentially, it's a combination of both. When I do import sometimes custom WMOs that I've made myself, usually those edits are limited to me swapping some textures or replacing some textures in a WMO. They actually don't mean that I actually change the model inside. That would require Blender. So what I use is a hex editor. That hex editor allows me to open the file, and in the hex editor you'll have like a series of numbers, and then you'll have like another column. And when you scroll past through these columns, you can actually see the file names of the textures uh, that the model uses. So if it said, for example, like textures dash dungeon dash walls dash brick1 dot blp, then what you would need to do in your patch is you would need to modify the WMO there. You would go in, you would edit, and you would put brick 2 or bricks 3 or 4. Save that, import that model into a specific patch, and then you would also have to make the same pathway for that new texture. So like brick 2 or brick 3, um, you would also add into the patch. So when you load that building, or when you put that building down in Nougat, it's also taking the new texture away from the patch itself, and you end up with a custom WMO. That's pretty much what it boils down to. It's not that hard. If you look at any of the WoW modding uh, websites that are out there, any of the top 2 or 3, probably the only ones. If you go into their forums, they have like tools sections, and I'm sure that amongst them you can actually find a hex editor that will do that for you. All right. And then, of course, a lot of the other details is just like placing, custom M2s around the area and figuring out, being playful with those. Which, again, if you want to make custom M2s, you do exactly the same thing that I just described, only instead of it being a WMO file, it'll be an M2 file, which usually are a lot smaller in terms of file size. Okay. And now the final question is Laserfen Maw. This is awesome, but I'm still waiting on more Horde side content. Give us a Frostwolf camp for RP. It would be in Lordaeron, so that it would be in your style of working in the Eastern Kingdoms. Okay, thanks for that suggestion, Laserfen Maw. Yes, I mean, it is. Like most of you have noticed that I do a lot of my own work, mostly on the Eastern um, continents of the Eastern Kingdoms. And it is true. I haven't done much of the Horde content. I've either done like neutral content or content that's sort of like alliance aligned. Although I guess you could say like the trolls could, if you were making them into playable forest trolls, that could be like Horde aligned. Have these forest trolls side with the Horde. So we'd have forest trolls in the Horde as well. So it would be like Warcraft 2, essentially, when the forest trolls joined the Horde. That's not a bad idea. A Frostwolf camp for RP. I'm like, just in my head, I'm trying to scan where in Alterac would that even like be possible in the world map. But yeah, that's interesting. I'll look into that and I'll think about that and I'll see what we can do with it. All right, so I think that's been pretty good. That was a pretty good session. So I will be back in a couple of days. You're gonna have some videos in the meantime. Don't hold me to a fire trying to think about like how long these might potentially take to come out. I don't know, but I do know that you will have some, so I'm not abandoning you. But yeah, so hopefully everything will be fine, and I will be back, and we will continue with more awesome mods and videos for the channel. So until then, everybody, take it easy, and I will see you all next time.